The stars had always been silent until that day. Captain Veltar pressed his long fingers against the control panel of the ship, Zenith Dawn. His green skin felt cold as he stared at the readings on his screen. After 300 years of space travel, he had never seen signals like these coming from such a small blue planet. "Captain, the radio waves are getting stronger," said his science officer, Mordak. The tall alien's 4 eyes blinked in different patterns as he studied the data. "The third planet from that yellow star is sending out thousands of different signals at once." Veltar nodded slowly. In all his years exploring space for the Catherian Empire, he had found many dead worlds and a few with simple life. But organized, radio signals meant only one thing: intelligence, a new species that might join the Great Galactic Council. "Follow the first contact rules," Veltar ordered. "Send the standard greeting message and wait for their response." The message went out into space, traveling at light speed toward the small blue world. It was written in basic mathematics and simple pictures. Every species in the galaxy had learned to understand these symbols when they first met other aliens. Earth Commander Jake Morrison was having a normal day. He sat in the command chair of the human ship Liberty, watching the empty space around Jupiter. His brown hair was getting gray at the sides, and his uniform was wrinkled from the long shift. The Liberty was not a warship. It was built to study planets and look for resources that Earth needed. "Commander, we're getting something strange on the deep space sensors," called out Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with dark hair tied back in a regulation bun. Her voice carried a mix of excitement and worry. Jake turned his chair toward her. "What kind of strange?" "It's big, sir. Really big. About twice the size of our largest space station, and it just appeared near Saturn." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "It's sending out some kind of signal toward Earth." Dr. Kevin Walsh looked up from his research station. The older scientist had gray hair and thick glasses that he pushed up his nose when he was thinking hard. "Commander, I'm picking up the same signal. It's not random. There's a pattern to it." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all of human history, they had never found proof of alien life. They had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it seemed they had their answer. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All hands to stations. Amy, try to contact Earth Command. Kevin, keep working on that signal." The Liberty turned toward the massive alien ship. As they got closer, Jake could see it was unlike anything humans had ever built. It was smooth and curved with no sharp edges. Strange lights moved along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at. "Commander, I think I understand part of their message," Kevin said, his voice shaking with excitement. "They're using mathematics. Basic numbers and shapes. Look at this." On the main screen, Kevin showed them the alien message. It started with simple math problems. 1 + 1 = 2. Then it showed pictures of atoms and stars. Finally, it showed a picture of their ship and the blue planet Earth. "They're trying to say hello," Amy whispered. Jake made the biggest decision of his life. Send a response. Use the same method. Show them we understand. The human reply went back to the alien ship. It copied their math problems and added a few more. It showed pictures of humans and their planet. Most importantly, it showed that humans were ready to talk. Captain Veltar received the human message and felt surprise wash over him. Most new species took days or weeks to understand the greeting protocol. These humans had figured it out in less than an hour. "Interesting," Mordak said, studying the human response. "They learn very quickly. Look at this, Captain. They didn't just copy our message, they improved it." Veltar looked at the data. The humans had added mathematical concepts that the Catherians hadn't included. They had shown pictures of their solar system with correct distances between planets. They had even included basic information about their biology and chemistry. "Prepare a shuttle," Veltar decided. "We will meet them face to face." The alien shuttle was small but beautiful. It moved through space without any visible engines, approaching the Liberty slowly and carefully. Jake watched it dock with his ship, and he felt history being made. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Captain Veltar stepped through, followed by two other aliens. Jake had expected many things, but he was still surprised by what he saw. The aliens were tall, maybe 7 feet high, with green skin and large black eyes. They moved gracefully, like dancers, and their faces showed intelligence and curiosity. "Greetings," Veltar said in perfect English. "I am Captain Veltar of the Catherian Empire. We have been watching your signals and wish to welcome you to the galactic community." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Commander Jake Morrison of the human vessel Liberty. Welcome to our solar system." Amy and Kevin stood behind Jake, both trying to hide their amazement. They were meeting aliens, real aliens who could speak their language. "You learned our language very quickly," Jake said. "We have been listening to your radio signals for several months," Veltar explained. "Your species creates much communication. We have learned many of your languages, though English seems most common." Dr. Kevin stepped forward, unable to contain his scientific excitement. "How did you get here so fast? Your ship appeared in our system in minutes." Veltar seemed pleased by the question. "We use what you might call faster-than-light travel. We fold space to move between star systems." Kevin's eyes grew wide. "Fascinating. Could you explain the basic principles? How do you generate enough energy to warp space-time?" Veltar looked surprised. Most new species asked about peaceful things, like trade or culture. These humans immediately wanted to know about advanced technology. "The energy comes from controlled matter-antimatter reactions," Veltar began, then stopped. He was shocked to see Kevin nodding along, clearly understanding the concept. "Of course," Kevin said excitedly. "We've theorized about that approach, but we haven't solved the containment problem. How do you prevent the reaction from destroying your ship?" Lieutenant Amy joined the conversation. "And how do you navigate while moving faster than light? How do you know where you're going to end? Up?" Captain Veltar felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of first contact missions. These humans were asking questions that most species took years to even think about. They were grasping concepts that usually required extensive explanation. "Your species learns very quickly," Veltar said carefully. Jake smiled. "We've always been curious about how things work. It's helped us survive on our world." "Survive?" Mordak asked. "Is your world dangerous?" "Everything on Earth is dangerous," Amy said with a laugh. "The weather, the animals, the diseases, even some of the plants. Humans have always had to be smart and tough to stay alive." The aliens exchanged glances. Most species in the galaxy came from peaceful worlds where survival was easy. The idea of a dangerous home planet was foreign to them. Over the next few hours, the humans and aliens shared information. The Catherians were amazed by how quickly humans understood their technology. They were equally surprised by human curiosity about weapons, defenses, and military tactics. Jake asked detailed questions about alien conflicts and how different species defended themselves. Amy wanted to know about alien governments and how they handled disagreements. Kevin was fascinated by every piece of technology the aliens mentioned. When the meeting ended, Captain Veltar returned to his ship with mixed feelings. The humans were intelligent and friendly, but there was something different about them. They thought about conflict and danger in ways that other species did not. As the Zenith Dawn prepared to leave Earth's solar system, Veltar made his report to the Galactic Council. He recommended that humans be invited to join the galactic community, but he added a note that would prove important later. "The humans are unlike any species we have encountered," he wrote. "They adapt quickly, learn fast, and think in ways that suggest a violent evolutionary history. They may require special consideration." The message traveled across the galaxy toward the Great Council Station, carrying news of humanity's existence. To thousands of alien civilizations, none of them understood what was coming. The Galactic Council Station was the largest structure ever built by intelligent beings. It floated in space between 3 star systems, a massive ring of metal and crystal that housed representatives from over 200 different species. For thousands of years, it had been the center of peace and cooperation in the galaxy. Ambassador Lisa Chen walked through the long corridors of the station, her heels clicking on the smooth floor. She was nervous, but she tried not to show it. Behind her walked Colonel Ryan Tucker, a tall man with short gray hair and the bearing of a career soldier. They were the first humans ever to set foot in the council station. "Remember, Ambassador," Ryan said quietly, "they invited us here. That means they want something from us or they see us as useful." Lisa nodded. She had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. She was about to represent all of humanity to an entire galaxy of alien civilizations. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of different aliens sat in curved rows that rose up toward the ceiling. Lisa saw creatures with tentacles, beings made of crystal, and others that looked like walking trees. At the center of the chamber sat the council elder, an ancient being whose species had founded the council thousands of years ago. "The council recognizes Ambassador Lisa Chen of the species called humans," the elder announced. His voice was translated into hundreds of different languages at once by the station's computers. Lisa stepped forward to the speaking platform. She could feel thousands of alien eyes watching her every move. Some looked curious, others seemed bored, and a few appeared hostile. "Honored council members," Lisa began, "I bring greetings from Earth and the human species. We are grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic community." A ripple of sounds went through the chamber. Some aliens chittered, others hummed, and a few made noises that sounded like laughter. The Zenthari delegate stood up. He was 8 feet tall with blue skin and 4 arms. His species was known for their strength and had been council members for over 1,000 years. "Elder Council," the Zenthari said, his voice booming through the chamber. "I have reviewed the data on these humans. They are weak creatures. Their bones break easily. They can only see a small part of the light spectrum. They live for less than 100 of their planet's cycles around their star." More sounds of agreement came from the chamber. Lisa felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her face calm. A crystalline being that looked like a walking diamond spoke. "Next. The Vorthak Collective has also studied the humans," it said in a voice like wind chimes. "Their intelligence is limited. They have no unified government. They fight wars among themselves over resources and beliefs. They are clearly not ready for advanced civilization." Colonel Ryan stepped closer to Lisa. She could see anger in his eyes, but he stayed quiet. This was her show. "Furthermore," continued a delegate that looked like a giant flower, "the humans show dangerous emotional responses. They become angry quickly. They make decisions based on fear and hatred rather than logic. The peaceful Mallory cannot support membership for such an unstable species." Lisa waited for the chamber to quiet down before she spoke again. "Honored delegates, it is true that humans are different from your species. We have had a more difficult path to intelligence. But we have survived and thrived because of our adaptability and determination." "Determination?" laughed the Zenthari delegate. "Your species gave up exploring space for decades after a few minor setbacks. You lack the persistence needed for true galactic citizenship." Lisa felt her temper rise, but she controlled it. "We stopped exploring space to solve problems on our home world. We eliminated diseases, reduced poverty, and learned to better manage our resources. That shows wisdom, not weakness." In the back rows of the chamber, an old alien sat quietly, listening to everything. Council historian Zephyron had lived for over 800 years and had seen dozens of species join the council. But something about the humans bothered him. He had been studying their databases for months, and what he found worried him deeply. The debate continued for hours. Species after species stood up to speak about humanity's failings. They pointed out human physical weaknesses, their short lifespans, their violent history, and their emotional nature. Some delegates even suggested that humans should be quarantined to their home system to protect the rest of the galaxy. Lisa defended her species as best she could, but she was fighting an uphill battle. These aliens had grown up in a peaceful galaxy where conflicts were rare and violence was almost unknown. They could not understand why humans had developed differently. "The humans show promise," said a delegate from the peaceful Altarian collective. "Their technology has advanced rapidly since first contact. Perhaps they could be granted limited membership status." "Limited membership?" asked the elder. "Yes. the Altarian continued. They could be allowed to trade with council species and share scientific knowledge, but they would be restricted to their home star system. This would allow us to monitor their development while protecting other species from their unpredictable nature. Murmurs of agreement came from around the chamber. Most delegates seemed to think this was a reasonable compromise. Lisa felt her heart sink. Limited membership meant humans would be treated like children, not equals. They would be stuck in their own solar system, while other species traveled freely through the galaxy. "I must speak," came a voice from the back of the chamber. Council historian Zephyron stood up slowly. He was ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species, and when he spoke, everyone listened. "Elder Council, I have spent months studying human databases and historical records. I fear we may be making a serious mistake." The chamber grew quiet. Zephyron rarely spoke during council sessions, but when he did, his words carried great weight. "The humans are not weak," Zephyron continued. "They are survivors. Their planet has tried to kill them for millions of years, and they have not just survived, they have conquered it. They have faced ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and predators that would terrify most of our species." Several delegates made dismissive sounds, but Zephyron pressed on. "Look at their history," he said, his voice growing stronger. "They have fought wars with weapons that could destroy their entire planet, yet they chose not to use them. They have diseases that killed millions, yet they found cures. They have explored the deepest oceans and the highest mountains of their world. They have even left their planet and walked on their moon." "So what?" interrupted the Zenthari delegate. "Many species have done these things." "Not like the humans," Zephyron replied. "Other species achieved these things through cooperation and gradual development over thousands of years. The humans did it all in less than 10,000 years, and they did it while fighting each other at the same time." The chamber was now completely silent. Even the elder leaned forward to listen. "There is something else," Zephyron said quietly. "I have studied the predators on the human homeworld. Their planet is filled with creatures designed to hunt and kill. Yet the humans not only survived these predators, they became the apex predators themselves. They climbed to the top of their food chain through intelligence, tool use, and something we have never encountered before." "What is that?" asked the elder. "Persistence hunting," Zephyron said. The humans would chase their prey for days or weeks, never giving up, never stopping, until their target collapsed from exhaustion. They are not fast or strong individually, but they never quit. They never surrender. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. She had never thought about human evolution in those terms before. "What are you suggesting, historian?" asked the elder. I am suggesting," Zephyrin said carefully, "that we may be looking at a species unlike any we have ever encountered. They think differently than us, they solve problems differently than us, and they may be far more dangerous than they appear." But his words fell on deaf ears. The other delegates had already made up their minds. They saw humans as primitive and emotional, not dangerous and capable. The vote was called. Species after species voted to grant humans limited membership status. They would be allowed to trade and share technology, but they could not leave their home system without special permission. Lisa watched the votes being counted with growing despair. Humanity was being caged like dangerous animals. "The vote is decided," announced the elder. "The humans are granted limited membership in the Galactic Council, with restrictions on expansion beyond their home system." As the session ended and delegates began to leave, Zephyrin approached Lisa and Ryan. "Ambassador," he said quietly. "I tried to warn them, but they would not listen. Your species is not what they think you are." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "You are predators," Zephyron said simply. "Everyone else in this chamber evolved as prey species. We achieved intelligence through cooperation because we had to work together to survive. You achieved intelligence as hunters. You learned to think like killers." Ryan stepped forward. "Are you threatening us?" "No," Zephyrin said sadly. "I am trying to warn you. The Council thinks they can control you. But I have studied your history. Humans do not stay caged for long. And when you break free, I fear what will happen to the rest of us." With those words, he walked away, leaving Lisa and Ryan alone in the emptying chamber. As the mining colony on Kepler 442b was supposed to be a symbol of peace and cooperation. Humans and Altarians worked side by side, digging rare minerals from the rocky planet's surface. The colony had been operating for 6 months without any problems. Everyone thought it was proof that humans could work peacefully with other galactic species. Danny Blake wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the morning work schedule. He was the human site supervisor, a job that meant he had to make sure both species worked together smoothly. At 42 years old, Danny had managed construction projects all over Earth before volunteering for this assignment. He was proud of what they had built together. The Altarians were gentle people who looked like tall, thin humans with pale blue skin and large eyes. They were peaceful by nature and had never fought a war in their entire history. Their engineer, Colvin, had become Danny's friend over the past months. They often shared meals and talked about the differences between their worlds. "Good morning, Danny," Colvin said as he entered the command center. "The night shift reports that Tunnel 7 is almost complete. We should reach the mineral deposits by tomorrow," Danny smiled. "Excellent news. Earth will be very happy to hear that." The colony had 57 people working in it. 23 were human miners and engineers, while 34 were Altarians. The humans handled the heavy equipment and dangerous work, while the Altarians managed the delicate extraction process. It was a perfect partnership. Chief Security Officer Maria Santos was making her morning rounds when the alarm started screaming. She was a former military police officer who had joined the colony mission because she wanted to be part of something historic. At 35, she was tough and smart, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Danny, we've got problems." Maria's voice crackled over the radio. "Long-range sensors are picking up ships coming out of hyperspace. Big ones." Danny ran to the sensor station. On the screen, he could see 3 massive ships appearing near the planet. They were dark and angular, covered with weapon systems that glowed with dangerous energy. "Oh no," whispered Colvin, his blue skin turning almost white with fear. "Those are Thrakari ships." Danny had heard of the Thrakari but never seen them. They were the galaxy's most feared pirates, with technology that was centuries ahead of most species. They had been raiding colonies and trade ships for over 1,000 years. No one had ever successfully fought them off. "How long until they reach us?" Danny asked. 20 minutes, Maria answered, her voice tight with worry. Colvin was already reaching for the emergency communicator. "We must surrender immediately. It is the only way to survive. The Thrakari sometimes let people live if they give up without fighting." "Sometimes?" Danny asked. "Maybe one time in 10, Colvin admitted. "But fighting them means certain death for everyone." Danny looked around the command center. Through the windows he could see human and Altarian workers going about their daily tasks, unaware that death was coming from the sky. These people were depending on him to keep them safe. "Maria, get to the armory," Danny ordered. "Break out. Every weapon we have." "Danny, no," Colvin pleaded. "You cannot fight the Thrakari. Their ships carry weapons that can destroy entire cities. Their soldiers wear armor that your guns cannot penetrate. Please, we must surrender." But Danny was not listening to surrender talk. He grabbed the colony-wide communication system and pressed the emergency button. "All personnel, this is Danny Blake. We have incoming hostile ships. Thrakari pirates will be here in 18 minutes. All humans report to your emergency stations. All Altarians proceed to the safe bunkers immediately." The colony exploded into action. The Altarians ran for the underground bunkers that had been built for accidents and storms. The humans grabbed tools and weapons and began preparing for war. Pete Johnson was a mining engineer from Colorado who had served in the Army before becoming a civilian. He was working in Tunnel 7 when the alarm sounded. Instead of running, he looked at the mining charges they used to blast through rock and got an idea. "Linda, help me with these explosives." He called to Linda Foster, a geologist from Texas, who had also served in the military. "We're going to give those pirates a warm welcome." Linda understood immediately. You want to booby-trap the tunnels? Not just the tunnels. Pete grinned. Everything. Maria reached the armory and began handing out weapons to the human workers. They had hunting rifles, pistols, and some basic military equipment, but nothing that should work against advanced alien technology. Still, every human took a weapon and prepared to fight. Listen up, Maria shouted to the gathered humans. We're outnumbered and outgunned. These aliens have better weapons and armor than us, but we have something they don't expect. What's that? Asked Carl Martinez, a young miner who was shaking with fear. We're from Earth, Maria said simply. We know how to fight. The Thrakari ships landed in the colony's main area, crushing buildings under their massive hulls. The ships were black as space and covered with spikes and weapon ports. Ramps lowered with a hiss, and the pirates began marching out. Thrakari warriors were 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. They carried energy weapons that could cut through steel and wore helmets that gave them perfect vision in any conditions. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and destroyed thousands of ships. To them, this was just another easy target. War leader, Krathak stepped off the lead ship and looked around the colony with satisfaction. Secure all structures, kill anyone who resists, take anything valuable. The Thrakari warriors spread out through the colony, expecting to find terrified aliens hiding in corners. Instead, they found empty buildings and silent streets. It was too quiet. The first warrior to enter the main mining facility stepped on, a pressure plate that Pete had rigged. The explosion sent him flying into a wall. Before his squad could react, gunfire erupted from hidden positions throughout the building. Maria had positioned human defenders in windows, doorways, and on rooftops. They used hunting tactics that humans had perfected over thousands of years. They would shoot and move, never staying in one place long enough for the aliens to target them. The Thrakari warriors were confused. Their armor could stop most energy weapons, but the humans were using primitive slug throwers that hit with physical force. The bullets couldn't penetrate the armor, but they could knock the warriors down and stun them. What are these creatures doing? Krathak roared into his communicator. They should be surrendering, not fighting. His lieutenant's voice crackled back. War leader, they fight like madmen. They show no fear. When we corner them, they attack instead of running. In tunnel 7, Pete and Linda had set up the perfect trap. When a squad of Thrakari warriors entered the tunnel, they triggered an explosion that brought down half the ceiling. The warriors were trapped under tons of rock, but the humans weren't finished. They had turned the mining equipment into weapons. Drilling machines became mobile gun platforms. Earth-moving equipment became armored vehicles. Even the ore processing plants became factories for improvised explosives. Danny coordinated the defense from the command center, using the colony's communication system to direct human fighters throughout the complex. He watched the security cameras as his people fought with desperate courage against impossible odds. Danny, Maria's voice came over the radio. They're bringing up heavy weapons. We can't hold the main entrance much longer. Fall back to position. 2, Danny ordered. Execute Plan Charlie. Plan Charlie was something the humans had come up with in the 15 minutes before the attack. They would abandon the outer buildings and draw the Thrakari into the mining complex, where they had prepared a special surprise. The Thrakari warriors advanced through the colony, thinking they were winning. They had taken the outer buildings and were pushing the humans back step by step. What they didn't realize was that the humans were leading them exactly where they wanted to go. When the main force of Thrakari warriors entered the central mining complex, Pete triggered the biggest explosion of his life. The charges he had placed brought down the entire main shaft, trapping most of the alien soldiers underground. War leader Krathak watched in horror as his elite warriors disappeared into a collapsing hole in the ground. In all his centuries of raiding, nothing like this had ever happened to him. All ships target the mining complex, he ordered. Destroy everything. But as the Thrakari ships powered up their weapons, more explosions rocked their hulls. Linda had rigged charges on the ship's landing gear while the warriors were inside fighting. The ships couldn't take off with damaged landing systems. The battle lasted for 6 hours. When it was over, Two of the three Thrakari ships were destroyed, and the third was badly damaged. War leader Krathak and a handful of survivors managed to escape, but most of his warriors were dead or trapped. The humans had lost 11 people and several more were wounded. But they had done something that no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had defeated the Thrakari in direct combat. As the surviving pirates fled into space, Krathak sent a message to every Thrakari clan in the galaxy. Avoid the humans, he warned. They are not like the other species. They fight like demons and show no fear of death. They are pure danger. The message spread through. Dr. Alex Warren stared at the data on his computer screen and felt his hands begin to shake. For the past 3 months, he had been studying the evolution of every known species in the galaxy. What he had discovered would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. Alex was Earth's leading expert on alien biology, a thin man with messy brown hair who often forgot to eat when he was working on an important project. He had volunteered for this research after the victory at Kepler 442b, hoping to understand why humans had been able to defeat the Thrakari when no other species ever had. The answer was terrifying. Computer, display evolutionary chart for Altarian species, Alex said to his workstation aboard the research ship Endeavour, the screen filled with data about the peaceful blue-skinned aliens who had worked with humans at the mining colony. Alex studied their homeworld and the creatures that lived there. Just like all the other species he had examined, the Altarians had evolved on a world where large predators were rare. Computer, display evolutionary chart for Zenthari species. More data appeared. The strong blue warriors who had dismissed humans in the council chambers came from a world where the biggest predators were about the size of earth cats. Their ancestors had achieved intelligence through cooperation and tool use, not through fighting for survival. Computer, display evolutionary chart for Catherian species. Captain Veltar's people had evolved on a world where the most dangerous creature was something like a large bird. They had never faced the kind of predators that stalked through Earth's history. Alex had now studied over 100 galactic species, and the pattern was always the same. Every single intelligent species in the galaxy had evolved as prey animals on worlds that were relatively safe. They had developed intelligence to build better tools and work together more effectively. Violence was rare in their histories because they had never needed to fight to survive. But humans were different. Earth was what scientists called a death world. Computer, display evolutionary chart for human species. The screen filled with images that made Alex's stomach turn. Saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than daggers. Cave bears that weighed more than small cars. Giant crocodiles that could swallow a human whole. Sharks, wolves, poisonous snakes, disease-carrying insects, and thousands of other creatures that had spent millions of years trying to kill human ancestors. Computer, display list of extinction events on Earth. The data was overwhelming. Asteroid impacts that killed most life on the planet. Ice ages that froze entire continents. Volcanic eruptions that poisoned the air for years. Disease outbreaks that killed 90% of all living things. Earth had tried to kill everything on it over and over again, yet humans had survived it all. Alex stood up and walked to the window of his laboratory. Outside, stars filled the black of space, each one representing solar systems that might contain life. But none of that life had faced the challenges that shaped humanity. "Captain Davis, please come to the biology lab," Alex said into his communicator. His voice was shaking, and he tried to control it. Captain Nicole Davis arrived a few minutes later. She was a career Navy officer with short blonde hair and the confident bearing of someone who had commanded ships for 20 years. She had been chosen to lead this research mission because of her experience with first contact situations. "What's wrong, Alex?" she asked, seeing the worry on his face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," Alex said quietly. "I've seen the truth about humans. Nicole, we're not just different from the other galactic species. We're their worst nightmare." "What do you mean?" Alex turned his computer screen toward her and began explaining what he had discovered. As he talked, Nicole's face grew pale. "Every species in the galaxy evolved as prey animals," Alex continued. "They achieved intelligence through cooperation, because they needed to work together to survive. But humans evolved as predators. We climbed to the top of the food chain on a world that was actively trying to kill us. Nicole sat down heavily in a chair. Are you saying we're natural-born killers? I'm saying we're persistence hunters, Alex replied. Our ancestors would chase prey animals for days or weeks, never stopping, never giving up, until the target collapsed from exhaustion. We're the only species in the galaxy that evolved to be relentless. Alex brought up more data on his screen. Look at this. Human ancestors could run for hours without stopping. We can survive in temperatures that would kill most galactic species. We can eat foods that are poisonous to other creatures. We can function with injuries that would disable aliens for months. But surely other species have some of these abilities, Nicole said. No, Alex shook his head. I've checked. The Xanthari are stronger than us, but they can only fight for short periods before they get tired. The Catherians are smarter than us in some ways, but they panic under pressure. The Altarians are more peaceful than us, but they can't make quick decisions in dangerous situations. Alex pulled up a video file from Earth's history archives. It showed human soldiers fighting in various wars throughout history. Look at this, Nicole. Humans have been fighting organized wars for thousands of years. We've developed tactics, strategies, and weapons that no other species has ever imagined. Nicole watched the footage with growing horror. She saw armies charging into battle, soldiers fighting hand-to-hand with primitive weapons, and people making desperate last stands against impossible odds. Other species see this as evidence that we're violent and primitive, Alex continued. But they're wrong. This is evidence that we're survivors. We learned to fight because everything on our world was trying to kill us. What about our emotions? Nicole asked. The council said we were too emotional to be trusted. Our emotions are weapons, Alex said bluntly. Anger makes us fight harder. Fear makes us more alert. Love makes us protect our families and friends. Other species see these emotions as weaknesses because their ancestors never needed them to survive. Alex brought up one more piece of data. That made Nicole gasp. It was a comparison chart showing how different species responded to impossible situations. Most galactic species have a surrender response, Alex explained. When they face certain death, their instinct is to give up and hope for mercy. It's a survival strategy that worked on their peaceful worlds. And humans? Humans have a rage response, Alex said quietly. When we face certain death, we get angry and fight harder. We would rather die fighting than live on our knees. It's why we beat the Thrakari. They expected us to surrender like every other species does. Nicole stood up and began pacing around the laboratory. Alex, if this is true, then the galaxy has made a terrible mistake. They think they can control us by keeping us in our home system. That's not the worst part, Alex said. I think some of them are starting to figure out what we really are, and when they do, they're going to try to destroy us. Nicole stopped pacing. What do you mean? Think about it from their perspective, Alex said. They're prey animals who have built a peaceful civilization. Now they've discovered a species of predators with advanced technology. How long before they decide that we're too dangerous to exist? Nicole felt a chill run down her spine. We have to warn Earth. We have to tell them what we've discovered. Already done, Alex said, pointing to his communication console. I sent the full report to Earth Command an hour ago. I also sent copies to the Galactic Council. You sent it to the Council too? They need to understand what they're dealing with, Alex said. Maybe if they know the truth, they'll realize that we're not their enemies. We're just different. But, even as he said it, Alex wasn't sure he believed it. The data was clear. Humans were predators in a galaxy full of prey. That made them either protectors or threats, depending on which side you were on. The message traveled through space at faster than light speeds, carrying the truth about human evolution to both Earth and the Council Station. On Earth, scientists and military leaders studied the data with growing understanding. Everything about human behavior suddenly made sense. But at the Council Station, the reaction was very different. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive now looked at them with new eyes. The creatures they had thought were weak and emotional were actually apex predators with advanced technology. Emergency sessions were called. Delegates who had voted for limited human membership now wondered if they had made a fatal mistake. Some called for immediate action to contain the human threat. Others argued for peaceful coexistence. Council historian Zephron read the human report in his private chambers and felt a mixture of vindication and terror. He had tried to warn the council months ago, but no one had listened. Now the truth was undeniable. Humans were not just another species seeking membership in galactic civilization. They were evolution's perfect survivors, shaped by millions of years of violence and struggle into something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Greg Thompson received the emergency communications from across the galaxy in his office at Earth Defense Command. One after another, alien species were demanding answers about human intentions. Some wanted reassurance that humans would remain peaceful. Others wanted to know if Earth planned to expand beyond their solar system. But the most disturbing message came from a Catherian intelligence source. It warned that several Ambassador Tony Rodriguez stood in the emergency session chamber of the Galactic Council, watching as species after species demanded action against humanity. The past week had been the most difficult of his diplomatic career. Ever since Dr. Warren's report about human evolution had reached the Council, fear had spread through the station like a plague. Tony was Lisa Chen's replacement, chosen because he had military experience as well as diplomatic training. At 51 years old, he had served in 3 different wars on Earth before becoming a peace negotiator. Now he found himself fighting for humanity's very existence. "The humans must be contained," declared the Xanthari delegate, his forearms gesturing angrily. "They are predators among peaceful species. We cannot allow them to spread throughout the galaxy." Murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. Since learning the truth about human evolution, many species had changed their opinions completely. The creatures they had once dismissed as weak were now seen as the galaxy's greatest threat. "The Vorthak Collective agrees," chimed the crystalline being. "Predator species cannot coexist with civilized life. They must be quarantined to their home system permanently, or eliminated entirely," added a delegate from the Rigelian Federation. "The longer we wait, the stronger they become." Tony felt his anger rising, but he controlled it. Showing the emotional responses that aliens feared would only make things worse. He waited for the chamber to quiet before speaking. "Honored delegates," Tony began, his voice calm and measured. "You speak of humans as if we are monsters. But in the past year, we have done nothing but help other species. We worked peacefully with the Altarians at Kepler 442b. We shared our technology freely. We have shown no aggression toward any council member." "You destroyed the Thrakari," the Xanthari delegate shot back. "You wiped out an entire pirate fleet." "We defended ourselves and our allies," Tony replied. "The Thrakari attacked us. We had every right to fight back." "But no species has ever defeated the Thrakari before," said the Malori representative. "Your victory proves that you are too dangerous to exist alongside peaceful civilizations." The debate had been going on for hours with no progress. Tony could see that most delegates had already made up their minds. They wanted humanity contained or destroyed, and they were just arguing about which option to choose. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red as automated voices announced a crisis in multiple languages. "All delegates to emergency positions. Unknown ships approaching Council Station. Repeat, unknown ships approaching Council Station." The main viewing screen activated, showing space around the station. Tony gasped as he saw what was coming. Dozens of dark ships were emerging from hyperspace, their hulls bristling with weapons. Even larger than the Thrakari vessels, these ships moved with predatory grace toward the Council Station. "Draconian hegemony ships," whispered the Elder in horror. "How did they find us?" The Draconians were the galaxy's other great threat, unlike the Thrakari, who were pirates seeking profit. The Draconians were conquerors who wanted to rule the entire galaxy. They had been quiet for decades, building their strength in the outer systems, while the Council ignored them. "Station defense. Forces prepare for battle," ordered the Elder. "All civilian ships evacuate immediately." But everyone in the chamber knew the truth. The Council's defense fleet was designed to stop pirates and raiders, not a full military assault. The peaceful species had never built warships capable of fighting the Draconians. "We cannot win this battle," the Xanthari delegate said quietly. "The Draconians have been preparing for war while we focused on trade and diplomacy." "Perhaps we can negotiate," suggested the Altarian representative. "The Draconians might accept our surrender." "The Draconians do not accept surrender," the elder replied grimly. "They enslave or destroy everyone they conquer." On the viewing screen, the Draconian fleet moved closer to the station. Their ships were massive, dark creatures of metal and weapons. The lead ship was larger than some space stations, its hull covered with gun ports and missile launchers. The Council's defense fleet moved to intercept, but it was hopeless. The peaceful species had built their ships for exploration and trade, not war. Within minutes, half the Council fleet was destroyed or disabled. "Unknown ships, you will surrender immediately," came a harsh voice over the communication system. "This is War Commander Drakthul of the Draconian Hegemony. The Council station is now our property. Resistance will be met with total destruction." Tony watched the battle unfolding on the screen and made a decision that would change everything. He activated his personal communicator and sent an emergency message to the small human fleet that was waiting at the edge of the system. "Admiral Mitchell, this is Ambassador Rodriguez. The Council station is under attack by Draconian forces. Request immediate assistance." The reply came back within seconds. "Understood, Ambassador. Human fleet moving to assist. Admiral Kate Mitchell, commanding." The elder turned to Tony with surprise. "You have ships here?" "A small escort fleet," Tony replied. "We always travel with protection." What Tony didn't mention was that the human fleet wasn't just an escort. Admiral Kate Mitchell commanded some of Earth's newest and most advanced warships, designed using technology learned from studying alien vessels over the past year. The human ships appeared on the viewing screen as they dropped out of hyperspace. There were only 12 vessels compared to 40 Draconian ships, but they moved differently than the Council fleet. Where the alien ships had flown in neat formations, the human ships spread out and began attacking from multiple directions at once. "What are they doing?" asked the Xanthari delegate. "Their tactics make no sense," but Tony understood. The humans were using strategies developed through thousands of years of warfare on Earth. They were fighting like wolves attacking a herd, using speed and confusion to overcome superior numbers. Admiral Kate Mitchell had been preparing for this moment since she graduated from the Naval Academy. She was 45 years old and had commanded ships in the asteroid belt conflicts before being chosen for the first human deep space fleet. Now she was facing the galaxy's most feared military force. "All ships execute attack pattern Delta," Kate ordered over the fleet communication system. "Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive and protect the station." The human ships moved like predators, striking fast and hard before disappearing behind asteroids and debris. They used the wreckage of Council ships as cover, turning the battlefield into a maze that favored smaller, more agile vessels. The Draconians had expected the same kind of fight they always won. Enemy ships would form battle lines and exchange fire until the weaker side surrendered or was destroyed. But the humans refused to fight that way. "Target the human ships," War Commander Drakthul ordered. "Destroy these insects." But the human ships were already gone, having fired their weapons and moved to new positions. The Draconians found themselves shooting at empty space while human missiles struck their ships from unexpected angles. Captain Rachel Murphy commanded the human destroyer Phoenix, dancing between enemy ships and striking at their weak points. She had studied every piece of data about Draconian technology that Earth intelligence could provide. "Target their weapon control centers," she ordered her crew. "We can't destroy these ships, but we can blind them." The Phoenix fired a spread of missiles at the nearest Draconian battleship, aiming not for the heavily armored hull but for the sensor arrays and communication systems. Other human ships copied the tactic, systematically destroying the enemy's ability to coordinate their attacks. War Commander Drakthul watched in growing frustration as his superior fleet was systematically picked apart by inferior ships using tactics he had never encountered. The humans fought like no species he had ever faced. "All ships, ramming speed," he finally ordered in desperation. "Destroy them by collision if necessary." But the human ships were ready for that too. As draconian vessels charged toward them, the humans used their superior maneuverability to guide the enemy ships into each other. The disciplined draconian formation collapsed into chaos as ships collided and exploded. The battle lasted for 3 hours. When it was over, most of the draconian fleet was destroyed or disabled. War Commander Drakthol's flagship was dead in space, its weapon systems destroyed, and its crew trapped inside a crippled hull. The human fleet had lost 4 ships and suffered damage to most of the others, but they had achieved the impossible. They had defeated the galaxy's most feared military force. In the council chamber, the delegates sat in stunned silence. The species that had been demanding human containment an hour ago now looked at Tony with a mixture of fear and respect. "How?" the elder asked quietly. "We fought like humans," Tony replied simply. In the days that followed, everything changed. The surviving Draconians fled to the outer rim, spreading word that humans were not to be challenged. The Thrakari pirates, already avoiding human space, began actively working to stay away from any system where humans might appear. The Galactic Council faced a new reality. For thousands of years, they had maintained peace through diplomacy and cooperation. But peace required strength to defend it, and the peaceful species lacked that.